There is this image of hardworking person, of a person who won't claim his rights also. So this is something that puts you in a box. It's called the bamboo ceiling. It's like the glass ceiling for women. The bamboo ceiling, it's a study that shows that Asian people will not be considered as an option for creative works or leadership works. When I talk about my parents, they just wanted me to have a safe job, to have a high diploma and a safe job. They just wanted me to be safe, but they didn't want me to be emancipated. I always think in terms of intersectionality, and I think that Asian women, they are at the crossing between two oppressions. They'll be, oh, it's just a joke and it's just humor, you're not funny because you're not laughing at my joke. So often Asian women are a fantasy or look exotic to certain men. I really think that having a double culture is great because you can understand two worlds and you can take the best of both cultures.
Thank you for joining me today for this new episode of the Diversity Seminar. I really wanted to meet a young French journalist of Asian origin who wrote an amazing book recently called Vous, les Asiates, You, the Asians. And I just wanted to have a conversation with her about her view of how it is to being an Asian in European society. The Diversity Seminar is a non-profit, no monetization initiative, and our only goal is to share with you some of the role models, amazing leaders in Europe, shaping the landscape of inclusivity and diversity. Linh-Lan, thank you so much for joining us today. It's a privilege and pleasure to have you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Max.
So maybe for our audience, first of all, could you share a bit about your family story, your family background?
Yes, so I was born in France and in Paris. Some people do not believe that with my face. And both of my parents are Vietnamese. They were born there and they fled the Vietnam War in the 70s and they met in Paris. So this is my family background.
And when did they arrive? In the 70s or?
Yeah, so my mom arrived in France when she was 20 years old. She met my dad in 75 and then they got married. So no war, no me.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing. So you were born in France and you live and you studied in France. So could you share a bit about your own background, a bit of your story?
I think I was very lucky. I grew up in the suburbs in a city called Antony. And to my parents, it was very important that I get the best education. So they chose to send me to a private school, private Catholic school that was kind of strict, yes. And after that, I got my baccalaureate, which is my A-level, I think. And then I got into the university, which is called Sciences Po. And then I studied 2 years of journalism. I had my master's degree. And since then, I've always been working for France Télévisions, which is the French equivalent for BBC, the French public television.
So you're a journalist right now?
Right now, I'm a journalist, and my specialty is fact-checking. I'm fighting disinformation. And I have a lot of work.
Amazing. So the reason why I really wanted to have this conversation with you is that you published a very interesting book that I have here that I highly recommend. It's in French. I hope it will be translated in English in the coming months. It's a remarkable book where you describe the situation of the Asians community in a European country, in that case it's France. And what compelled you to write this book? What was the motivation? Why did you write this book?
So first of all, the title, you Asian people, when a sentence starts like that, what follows is not very, very, very nice. Like, it's like, you Asian people, you're a hard worker, you Asian people, you're very discreet, and you go with the flow, you cause no problems. But we know that it's not that as nice as it seems. Basically, I have to be precise about something. When we mean Asian people in France, we mean East Asian people and Southeast Asian people. It's different than in the UK. So basically, I was aware that there was an anti-Asian racism in France because I lived it all my life. Since I was a kid, I was always insulted and mocked because of my Asian features. And I kind of got used to that. But when I understood that my case was not isolated, when I understood that this was systemic, that it happened to like every Asian people around, so that's when I started becoming angry. And I think the worst part was during COVID. I saw that there was anti-Asian racism everywhere in the world, in Western countries. And I saw people being mocked, being insulted, and even assaulted as well, just because there was Asian, just because there were people doing the amalgam between virus in China and Asian people. Yeah, because I thought like every Asian people had to be Chinese, and this is completely wrong. So there was such a wave of violence all over the world that I felt that something had to be done, and someone had to talk about why this anti-Asian racism, because it was there since the colonial history. And so my aim was to explain the violence that we live today, well, has an origin, and this is colonial history.
And I must say that what you say really surprised me during the COVID time, because I've heard some pretty bleak stories about Asian people having issues, and it's so bizarre and so surprising. So I totally understand that. So one of the things I wanted to discuss with you, and I'm switching to the more corporate world, is that when I think of my experience across Europe, so I worked with most of the countries in Europe. I worked extensively with those countries. I've traveled there, stayed there, worked with customers, teams, etc. And when we met, I suddenly realized that there's not that many diverse leaders in Europe. There are quite a few Indians. There are quite a few persons with an Arab origin. There's quite a few blacks. But I remember that I've never met ever a senior leader in Europe from East Asian origin. And that really surprised me. So of course, I didn't meet all the companies and all the corporations in Europe, but that's a sign, okay? I never, ever met a very senior leader from East Asian origin or Southeast Asian origin. So I was wondering, and in a sense, it contradicts what we think, you know, the prejudice we have, exactly what you said there. East Asian and Asians, they are so good at school, they must be brilliant and blah, blah, blah. I never met any. Any thought on that?
I think there are many explanations to that. It's not because Asian people are less capable than the other to have a leadership position. I think this is because of systemic racism, something I didn't know before. I thought that anti-Asian racism was just about jokes, and it's mainly about jokes, actually, when I remember all the testimonies I had. It's not only about jokes and microaggression. It's also about workplace. You know that in France, Asian people have less chances to access a job than a white person. And it's the same for people perceived as Arabs, and the same for people perceived as black. Asian people will be less discriminated than Arab and black people, but still, they will be discriminated when you compare them to white people. So this is the first thing. Asian people are victims of systemic racism. It's not very well known, but That's why I wrote my book. And it's the same for finding an apartment. They are discriminated as well. So when you are non-white, well, you don't have the same life. Like, you don't have the same chances as a white person in all the sides of life. So this is the first thing. The second thing is that Asian people succeeding in France, this is a real thing. Like, Southeast Asian people are succeeding, but it's not because they're better than other people. It's just that they sometimes they had a good background back in the country when they fled. So they have more codes maybe than other minorities. They had more capital. So this is easier for them to succeed. But why don't they access to leadership position? It's also because there is this model minority myth. So you can have diplomas, good diplomas even, but it's not a guarantee of success in your life. Why? Because there is this image of hardworking person, of a person who won't ask for, claim his rights also. So this is something that puts you in a box. That's something that is very, very alienating, this model minority image. And something was documented in the United States. It's called the bamboo ceiling. It's like the glass ceiling for women. The bamboo ceiling, it's a study that shows that Asian people will not be considered as an option for creative works or leadership works. Why? Just because of this image. Like, okay, the Asian person, this is a positive stereotype. Okay, the Asian person is a hard worker. But if you just see the person as just a hard worker who will work countless hours to serve you, then you're not seeing this person as a leader. So that's a real problem. That's why we shouldn't be happy with the model minority myth, because it closes you the doors, and it's not the fault of Asian people. And there is something else also. I have to say that it's true that sometimes parents, when they're immigrants, they will encourage you to do a job that brings you money quickly. So maybe they won't tell you to be a leader. They won't tell you to have your own enterprise. Well, it depends from the minorities. I know that in East Asian minorities, entrepreneurship is a real thing. But when I talk about my parents, they just wanted me to have a safe job, to have a high diploma and a safe job. They just wanted me to be safe, but they didn't want me to be emancipated. It means that they didn't tell me, yeah, follow your dreams, do whatever you want. That was not the real speech. To find your own path, it's important that you don't listen to society or don't listen to your parents who tell you to be in a safe space. So now, for example, as a matter of fact, I'm in a stable job now, but I would like to be an entrepreneur as well. This is not what I was taught by my parents. That's not what I was taught by society. Because Asian people, hard worker, and following the lines. No, so I have to think outside the box.
That's so interesting. Thank you for sharing that. And that also reminds me that, the corporate world has invested a lot over the last 30 years, 40 years in gender diversity, promoting women. And the work that has been done has been pretty successful. There's still a lot to do, but the situation today doesn't compare to the situation 30 years ago. So there's been a real push on that. But when I think of that, it's disturbing to think that, in fact, East Asian women did not really benefit from this wave, in the sense that there's plenty of women leaders and managers those days, which is awesome. But again, I haven't seen a lot of East Asian, Southeast Asian origin women in Europe benefiting from that. So it feels like the ethnicity or the race kind of supersede or was more powerful than even the gender in this situation. Does that correlate what you see and what you experienced?
Yeah, sure. I always think in terms of intersectionality. And I think that Asian women, they are at the crossing between two oppressions, like being a female and being Asian. And when the two combined, it's explosive because like you will be slowed down because you're a woman, and you will also be slowed down because you're an Asian person. And I think it's really heartbreaking. I can give you a small anecdote that happened to me. When I was in journalism school, I didn't. There was a day where I was very tired and I didn't study a lot, so I gave back a paper that was almost empty. And then the teacher, a white old man, looked at me and said, "Even if French is not your mother tongue, make an effort." It means that he just saw my face. He didn't talk to me, and if he had, he would have understood that I was French. But no, he was not interested in that. He was racist. And he told me that, and he denied me from my French citizenship in a way by considering I was a foreign student. But I remember that I also have a colleague from my journalism school. He was like, "Oh yeah, you should come and work for me." And that was a white man, yeah, a bit older than me. And I think we were both talented, but we didn't, we were not reflecting the same image. Like I was the Asian woman and he was the white guy. And this white guy, the white student, is very, very nice. But what if we were two white guys? Like who would have succeeded? I don't know. Life can be very, very unfair, of course, when it comes to systemic discrimination. But yeah, I'm trying to deal with that. We have to accept that society isn't fair, and that's why I'm publishing my book today. It's because I want my fellow Asian people to know what the world is about, so that they're not too disappointed as I was before.
And by the way, your book is absolutely awesome. I really enjoyed that.
Thank you.
There's a lot. It's very lively. It's very funny. It's positive. You're not complaining in the sense you're not, spending your time complaining. You're also very positive, and it's very engaging. It's a really very good book, and I recommend that to everyone. I really hope it will be translated in English in the coming weeks or months, right?
Yeah.
Fantastic. So are there advantages on the other side of being of Asian accent in the European society?
I really think that having a double culture is great, because you can understand two worlds, and you can take the best of both cultures, and you can mix them. I mean, you don't have to choose between, for example, being French or being Vietnamese. You can be both, and it's great. And I think that employers should consider that. That I know that more and more firms are looking for workers from Asian descent because they want to do business with Asia. Asia is really, really developing. I'm just wondering if they are ruling the world right now. I'm just wondering. So yeah, for example, I went to Vietnam and I was amazed. Like Vietnam, Hanoi, for example, looks like Hong Kong. There are like skyscrapers everywhere, and everyone is working like super hard, and they have no time. And when I go back to Paris, I'm like, wow, it looks like everything has slowed down. Like this is weird, and the metro is not working. And you are in two different universes. So I think, yeah, multinational firms are looking for people from Asian descent because they think they have the skills to understand the other cultures better, and then to be better at business. But the problem with that is that sometimes, for example, Vietnamese people are expected to speak Mandarin, and some, because they look Asian, and this is so weird because they have to learn Mandarin to conform to the image that the employer has of an Asian person. So this is like a weird situation, and I think it's even kind of racist because like mixing the cultures all together and thinking that Asia is only China is a form of racism. So of course you can make of your Asian descent an asset, but I think you should really be clear about your identity and tell your employer who you really are and not just trying to match what the employer wants from you. For example, I'm in an association of journalists fighting against racism. And to us, it's very important that newsrooms have more diversity, of course, because when you make a story, when you make the information, you have a huge power. You have the power to shape the understanding of the world. So if newsrooms are only full white people from upper classes, of course they will be disconnected from the world. And we need people who understand what it is to be a son of or a daughter of migration. We need people who understand what precarity is. So I think the diversity in general, more than not only being Asian, it's like diversity in general is important. I think diversity is very important in power structures, not only in ethnic point of view, but in general, social point of view. Like you shouldn't only have like rich people talking with the whole society, or the society will not feel represented. So yeah, I think our point of view is very important because it's diverse and because we are France as well.
That's very profound. That's very profound. I'd like to come back for a second, something you mentioned in your book that really resonated with me. You mentioned that one of the very common way of kind of having microaggressions against Asian people are jokes, okay? And when you mentioned that, wow, I remembered that at the beginning of my own career, I had colleagues or people calling me Snow White, for example, those type of little things.
Horrible.
And at that time, I was young, I was beginning my career. I was not even, thinking of that, okay? Because it's a bit shocking, but you know what? I just had to do my job and that's it. So could you expand a bit about this way of joking about Asian people?
Racist humor is one of the most common way to attack Asian people in France. Like, it's hard to detect systemic discrimination because the employer won't tell you, oh, I didn't hire you because you were Asian, or I didn't give you the apartment because I'm scared that you will come with all your family and cook like smelly stuff. They won't really say you that unless they're very racist. But racist humor is such a thing. Racist people use them to be racist without looking racist. They'll be, oh, it's just a joke and it's just humor. You're not funny because you're not laughing at my joke. But actually, it's really a way to be, again, to convey white supremacy. Because when you're telling a person like, yeah, you have big black hair, you don't look serious, for example, at a workplace. So this is a way of telling the person that she or he doesn't fit. It's a way of saying, like, yeah, you look different and you don't have your place here. And they're not innocent. There's a lawyer, a Brazilian lawyer, whose name is Adilson Moreira, and he said that was recreational racism. But it's still racism. It's more racism than humor. So that's why he uses the term recreational racism. And it's a way of oppression disguised in humor, but still it should be illegal because racism is illegal, right? Of course, freedom of speech is very important. But the motto of France is liberté, égalité, fraternité. Liberty, equality, fraternity. What if liberty overrules equality and overrules fraternity? It has to be the three at the same time. So you shouldn't use your liberty, your freedom of speech to have a freedom of oppressing people. So that's why we have to deal with this racist humor. So when they call you Snow White, this is horrible. This is not human, and it's like catcalling in the street. When a person tells me "ni hao, konnichiwa," she's not trying to know me as a person. She's just saying, okay, this is my space, and you are a non-white person in my space, and I'm just reminding you who you are, like that you're inferior. And that's the same with racist humor. And that's really when I started to be conscious about anti-Asian racism. There was a sketch from two humorists whose name was Kev Adams and Gad Elmaleh, and it was an anti-Chinese.
Very, very famous humorists
They are
in France.
super famous, and they are adored by their public. They're very popular, and so they dressed with their like fake Chinese costumes, and they were doing the accent during a few minutes, and it was so painful. It was so painful because for people like me, it really reminded us of all the jokes that we had since we are young. And the thing it's not just one joke. It's like a joke every week of all your life, doing 40 years. No, this is torture. You can handle that one day, but what if you hear the same joke over and over and over about eating dog, about you having yellow skin, this is not innocent at all. This causes trauma.
Thank you for sharing that. And on that same topic in the book you mentioned, and I think you had and you have a lot of courage to describe and share those things. And so you mentioned something that I find very courageous from you. You mentioned that there is a distorted image of Asian women, that Asian women are perceived with certain stereotypes that completely distort the human connection to others and to Asian women in particular in that case. So could you expand a bit on that? Could you explain to us what you meant by that?
So often Asian women are a fantasy or look exotic to certain men. They're seen as submissive, they're seen as nice and obedient and open to sexuality. And those images are not coming from nowhere. You probably know an opera called Madame Butterfly. So Madame Butterfly, it's a Japanese woman in the 19th century, and here comes the American military officer, and he's like, oh, I'm gonna have a good time here in Japan, I'm gonna marry that girl, we're gonna have sex, and then I'll go away. But she doesn't know that. So she's really in love with him, and they have a baby together, and then he's gone, and he comes back with his American wife, and like, okay, hand me the kid, we're taking the kid with us, and she commits suicide. So that was really a traumatizing story. And that was inspired by a French author called Pierre Loti, and who actually wrote a novel inspired by his own life because he had a temporary wife in Japan. So this is a colonial heritage. Like the Asian women is not naturally submissive, of course, but when comes the colonizer, what choice do you have but to collaborate, I'd say. And for example, I'll talk about Indochina. And so Indochina, there were French colonizers who came there to do business, and there were, in general, single men, okay? And those single men, to concubines, were like half sex workers and half domestic women, and they would have like a relationship together, but really with domination. And so there are many French colonial writers who wrote about Asian women having tight pussies, like comparing them to female white women. And this is horrible because they really shaped this image. And afterwards, there was the war with Western soldiers going to Japan, for example, or Korea, and they were having relationships with prostitutes, and so that's why. And there was an organized system of prostitution in Asia, but that was also organized by Western people. So all of this shapes the image of the Asian women, and so that's why. Many Asian women, even today, they are seen as sex workers. I have this story, which is very, very shocking, of a girl who is from South Korea, and she's Belgian. She went to Lebanon, for example, and she fell asleep in a bus. And then when she woke up, the driver was unzipping his pants. And she was like, "Wow, what are you doing?" And he was like, "Oh, I thought you were a Philippine prostitute." And she was like, "Hell no, I'm Belgian and I'm here to work with an NGO." And he was like, "Oh, you should have told me before." And he was like, "Yeah, no, I'm a Christian man. I'm very respectful. I just thought you were a prostitute." And you're like,
That's terrible.
That's hell. That's hell. And this happened to her, but this happened to many, many Asian women. And I remember in my case, being followed in the street by a man calling me Chinese. He said Chinese when he was following me. I was like, "Yeah, guy, dude, what's your problem?" He was like, "Oh, I just wanted to tell you that you're pretty." And so, yeah, this is what we call fetishization. And this is basically racism, but declined in a sexual way. So this is very painful.
No, but thank you for sharing, because I think it's very courageous to also highlight and shed light on those type of images, because we all have prejudice, we all project stories and things and all of that. And so I think it's very important that we realize that those things exist and that we also reflect as human beings about that and the impact of those type of things. And so thank you for sharing that.
And of course, it doesn't only happen to Asian women.
Of course.
Arab women and Black women are also fetishized, and even Black men are fetishized because they're thought to be more virile than the other people, and it's really a shame.
And unfortunately, by the way, one of the most shocking thing that happened in my career, one day, a senior leader, a long time ago, made a joke about me based on these type of things. And that's so shocking, when you hear those type of things. Well, anyway, it is what it is. And thanks God, we survive and we move forward.
Yes, we did. We're here now, safe.
Exactly. So totally switching topic, when we discussed initially, and I mentioned to you that these podcasts were really about bringing role models and leaders and people who really have an impact when it comes to diversity, inclusion, equality, and all those topics in the world, and specifically more in the corporate world, or who have a position of influence. And so this notion of role models is very important. And I think you also think that role models are quite important. I would like to know why, from your perspective.
Imagination shapes our dreams. And if you dream about something great, then you will do all the best to reach your goal. And I remember when I started being a journalist, like there were no famous Asian journalists. And when I did some talks in journalism schools, and there are young girls that came to me and said, I'm so glad you exist, because now I know that I can do that as well. And I was really moved, because that was not even I didn't mean to be a role model or anything. I just wanted to survive in journalism. And I think it's really important because, for example, as I didn't have an Asian role model, so I chose a Black woman to be my role model. This woman is Rokhaya Diallo. She's a journalist, a writer, a filmmaker. She's from Senegal. She's French, but from Senegal. And I'm so happy because I saw a non-white woman who is powerful, who is not afraid of speaking out, and who talks very well. I think this is important. and she was unapologetical. She's very, very courageous, and she has so many haters. But if she wasn't there, I think I wouldn't have the strength to do what I'm doing today. But seeing her, seeing that she succeeded, I felt more legitimate to do what I'm doing today. But I know this has limits. For example, even if I have the skills to be the French president, as an Asian woman, I don't think I'll ever be a president, because it's not just only about skills and hard work. It's about connections, and it's about votes. So will French people vote for me and see me as any French person? I don't think so. But if I had seen, for example, a former Asian female president, Présidente de la République in France, well, I think I will be like, okay, so if she succeeded, maybe I will succeed. And I think that when Barack Obama was elected in the US, it gave a lot of hope to many Black people, even if I know like he has many privileges, like he's not, yeah, he has a good social background. But same, when Kamala Harris became vice president, like, wow, she was the first Asian woman, the first Afro-American woman to get there. And so even if I'm not American, wow, this gives me a lot of hope and courage to be doing what I'm doing. But you need hope to go forward. And to have hope, you need role models.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So I hope one day we'll see a French president from Asian descent. Who knows? It may happen someday.
Maybe.
Work.
Maybe. Not sure about that.
By the way, the UK is interesting for that, because the number of ethnically diverse political leaders, of very senior political leaders in the UK is like phenomenal. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's a very interesting model for the world, and very interesting one. Mm-hmm. So we're nearly at the end of this podcast that I really enjoyed a lot. I'd like to ask you a last question. So if you had in front of you a young, diverse professional, so someone who really wants to succeed in the public service or the corporate world, what will be your 2 or 3 advice to this young person?
I think it's very important to know yourself, because there will be so many injunctions from your parents, from your friends and family. They will all want to decide for you, but the only person who really can decide is you. But before deciding, you have to know who you are. And I told about my parents, they just wanted me to be safe financially. But being safe financially it's survival. It's not really what emancipates you, and it's not what really makes you happy. So don't really go in a field that includes mathematics if you suck at numbers. I was very bad at mathematics, so fortunately, I could choose something that suited me better with letters, writing. And yeah, if you're creative, like if you're Asian and creative, like don't forget about that. Really go for it. Go for it. I know creativity and drawing is not something that nourishes you in a financial way, but it's worth trying and it's worth failing, because you won't have regrets afterwards. So really, yeah, know who you are. Be grateful to your parents, of course, because when you're a son or daughter of a migrant, they have sacrificed a lot for you. But so that's why when you choose your own path and your authentic path, it's a way of thanking them for all the sacrifices they've made for you. And then don't be naive. This is very important. Don't be naive, because the world is not it's not an equal world. So you'll have to manage. Some people who are less skilled than you, but more privileged than you, will pass me in front of you. So just take a deep breath and find a good working place that that will accept you for your authentic self, because you can't mask forever. It's very, very tiring on the long term. So surround yourself with people that you admire so you become like them.
And people will accept you.
Yes, of course, of course.
For who you are.
For who you are.
Superb. Linh-Lan, thank you so much, and I really highly recommend your book in French for now. I really hope it will be translated soon, because it's a really fascinating, excellent, and positive book. So thank you for that, and thank you for this fantastic interview and time together. I learned so much. Sometimes I was surprised by what you said, but that's good. That's really good. So thank you for the time together.
Thank you.